Okay, so this is design option 2, and straight away you can see that I've gone for straight lines here rather than the curves, but I really wanted to go from the kind of angle that we've got on the conservatory here, this kind of 45-degree angle. I think it's 45 degrees anyway, it might be a little bit less. But I want to take that same line here, and I've created this design based on that kind of shape. And what it does, the similar way as in the curves, is it kind of pushes the boundaries out. It kind of makes sure that the garden looks bigger than it is, and it kind of makes the most of the space. And I'm quite pleased with how it worked out, really. What you can see from those kind of angles is it just gives you really nice sight lines to the sort of new entertainment area, and it kind of just makes the whole thing look more interesting and a little bit quirky, rather than a straight line going straight out. It just kind of widens the plot, makes it look longer, sends the eye over to this corner, sends the eye over here, and kind of draws the eye into where your main entertainment area is going to be. It kind of goes right out to that corner. So actually I think it works quite nicely. I was sort of more surprised. I had in mind when I was on site that curves would be better, and it's entirely up to you, but I'm actually sort of going more in favour of this one, and I've surprised myself that I think this one is working out a little bit better. So this one sort of follows, the paving would follow the line of the conservatory. It would be deeper than it is already now. I've still got this design feature here, which is the same. We still want to go for that same fencing all the way around, and I've still got this angled off here into the corner with all the same things that apply about whether we replace that tree or not. But then where it gets more interesting is over here. So what I've done is looked at producing a sort of square entertainment area, and I've replaced the circular sofa with sort of two square sofas, or you could do L-shaped sofas, or you could go all the way around in a big sort of U shape. And that works quite nicely. You can also still have the fire pit or a table in the middle, and of course you can still have the pergola if you want it. So if I just pop that back in there, the gazebo, and that actually sort of fits rather nicely, I think, on that kind of square layout. And it still gives you, just having it at that angle, it gives you nice views through. Obviously, if we can remove as much of that sort of tree shrubbery behind as possible, it gives you really nice sight lines. Also, it creates, let me go back to the overhead view, and I'll just hide that pergola again for the time being. What it does, by going at this kind of angle, it creates these kind of little triangular shapes. I mean, obviously we can pave right up into the fence if you would prefer, but I rather like that to place the pots into those little areas, and I filled them with the sort of pebbles, and it gives a really nice feature. When we come down, they just give really nice sight lines. Let me show you from the dining room. You've got a nice sort of angle that's drawing the eye into this corner, sort of what's around there, what's behind there. And these kind of pots, we can use these illuminated pots, just sort of sit really nice in kind of focal points there. Gives a little bit of height and added interest behind the sofas, rather than just everything all flat. It gives you a little bit of, a little bit of a sort of feature there. So I was quite pleased with the way that worked out. And what I've gone with is I started playing around with how we might use the paving in this design. And as you can see, it kind of gives us different zones. I think this would work quite nicely. So if we go for that grey slate paving that we've talked about before, and rather than just edging it, I've kind of used a contrast colour for larger areas in this plan. So rather than just an edging, and I think on the circular one I had a sort of feature going through it, I've used the edging, and then I think it would be nice to have this whole entertainment area here in the lighter colour. So we've got these kind of contrast blocks. So it's entirely subjective, really, what your preference is. If you like this kind of contrast of materials, or if it's looking too fussy for you, I think it's a little bit misleading on a model because it all looks a little bit kind of too much pattern going on. But honestly, in whoops, zoomed in too much. In a garden, without these kind of features, it can look very flat and very bland very quickly. So if you have a little sort of flick through the Marshalls catalogue, you can see all the pictures. There's often contrast going on. Sometimes you won't even notice it, and when you look closely, for instance on page, which one's this? On page 27 of the catalogue, there's a little edging going on in a slightly different colour. There's even edgings going on page 29, and actually on page 28 you can see the seating area there is in a darker slate, and then you've got a contrast of the paler marble going on. So often it's kind of there without you realising it, because it just all blends in so beautifully. But you'll be hard pushed to find a photograph of any one of these gardens in the brochure that hasn't got, you know, a couple of colours used for contrast, and it really makes all the difference. It really does. It just makes it look more kind of designed, and the layout has real purpose. And this gives this kind of line that just draws the eye right up here into this corner. So everything else remains the same. It's just really pretty much if you prefer the straight lines or the curves. Let me put this back in the gazebo there, and you can just see how that sort of works. And I'll just spin down for you so you can have a look with that. So there we go. Straight lines or curves, a tiny amount of planting, not much to take care of at all. So hopefully I've answered everything in your brief, and we've come to a good sort of compromise on the amount of planting to look after. So in terms of details of what we would actually use, comes down again to personal preference, but going back to your mood board that I created for you, we talked about rattan. So for each design you could either have, you know, you can have the rattan furniture, you can have the circular one, or 2 sofas. We talked about these illuminated pots, which I can definitely source for you, which will be great. I'm going to have this kind of wall feature. This is the water wall, but we're going to use these tilings in a lighter grey, and it will be above a trough just like this, a rendered sort of blockwork planter with just a few plants in there rather than water. We're going to use the cedar clad sort of fence, horizontal fence panels. It will be low at the back so that we can look over to the fields, and we're also going to use these inset lights, so we'll have low level lighting and we'll have uplighters and downlighters on the walls. And this is the kind of grey material that we're looking at for paving and for edging. So this is the Symphony that I think would be my preference, which is a very smooth paving, but there is also, oops, I did the wrong thing then. There is also another one that's very similar, this Cassata Slate, which Marshalls do. I think on balance, depending on how it looks cost-wise, of course the brochure doesn't give any costs, so you might want to look at both of these materials, get some samples, and see kind of what the costings are. And just in terms of the edging material that we could use, I can't find a picture right now. Right. Anyway, I did have some edgings. Basically, this Symphony paving also comes in this lighter colour, so we can use that. But it would be quite difficult to do that in the circular design. If we go for the circular design, we would need a smaller, obviously we can't sort of make this go into a curve, we would need a smaller set. So in that case, I would use the sandstone sets if you go for the circular pattern, which is something like, I'm looking at the brochure, there's a set on page 125 of the Marshalls brochure. They're used as driveways, driveway sets, the small square ones, but they're also used to edge paving. So yeah, if you look at the contemporary driveways, there's an overview of them. Page 113 has the kind of start of it. Oh, and then yeah, page 117 has the contemporary driveway sets, and I would go for, they call it autumn bronze number 22, but actually it's got quite a lot of greys and pinks and, or not pink, sort of buff colour and grey, and it tones in really nicely with the grey paving. I've used it before. So that would be the sort of thing that we would use to create the contrast in the circular design. Okay, so let me know your thoughts on that, and if you'd like me to come round again and discuss it, then I can do that, or if it's just a yes or a no, we can do that on email, or if you've just got a few feedback, amends, you can mark them on the plan. I'll send you plans of both of these designs. You know, feel free to scribble any comments on there and email back to me, or you can call me, of course, and we can talk it through if you'd rather to do that. So yeah, any way you'd prefer, and if you could come back to me in the next couple of days or so, that would be really great, and we'll keep it moving. So yeah, have a few days to sort of mull it over and think it through, and then get back to me after that. Okay, thanks guys, bye.